Welcome to Flamp Flamp Sports. My name is Richard Harris. And let's talk sports. Welcome to Flamp Flamp Sports. My name is Richard Harris. Today I was engaged in a discussion about Brady versus Montana. And I started thinking what the world really started to think about, whether if Brady gets into another Super Bowl, does it unequivocally make him the man, the myth, the legend? And we were talking about how, in my view, I don't think it makes him any more of anything, because this era of football is like this era of basketball. It's not very good. And we started going through players and who they had to compete against and how many Hall of Famers Brady's played against and how many Hall of Famers and Hall of Fame defenders Montana's played against. And the argument, to me, I've decided to expand it to basketball. This is the difference in why I say Jordan is way better than LeBron, Kobe is way better than LeBron, and why I say Montana is better than Brady. If you sit back in this era of football first and go through all the teams, all the players, all the tremendously great Hall of Fame players that Brady has competed against over the years, and gone up and did the same thing for Joe Montana, it's laughable. Because who is Brady? Everyone keeps talking about that Brady doesn't have receivers, and he's a quarterback that's made the receivers great, and so on and so forth. Which is 100% true. But the fact is, who are they playing against? The 49ers in the 80s, early 90s, and then when he went to Kansas City, Montana, they basically played against, there was like 6 different teams they had to go through a year to get to the big games. The Patriots only have to go through one team a year, and that's the Colts when Peyton was there. Now it's Denver, occasionally Pittsburgh, occasionally Baltimore. But the fact remains, he ain't going through but one team a year to get to the big game. Montana had to contend against the Giants, the Eagles, who underachieved, the Bears, the Rams, the Redskins. And the Cowboys dynasty, yes, was dying, but they were still relevant early in his career. And then not to mention, in Super Bowl games, he didn't play. Brady's gone up against Eli Manning twice and lost. Brady has beaten Jake Delhomme, beaten Donovan McNabb, who was a good quarterback, who some people believe are his Hall of Fame credentials. He beat Kurt Warner, who is a Hall of Famer, and he has beaten Russell Wilson, who is basically on good course towards that, but his teams are more known for their defense. So if you look at it, who Montana beat in Super Bowls? Montana beat Elway. Montana beat Boomer Esiason, who that year was the league's most valuable player. Montana beat Dan Marino, who I believe that year was the year he had all those passing records. And he has defeated Ken Anderson, who at that time was a top 5 quarterback in the league. Plus, look at the defenses that the 49ers of the 80s had to go up against just to get to where they are. The 85 Bears defense is the greatest defense ever. And though the Ravens of 2000 think that they are, and they have a good argument to make about that, the fact remains, most public don't believe that. The Giants. How many epic battles did the 49ers and the Giants go through in those years? Cowboys. How many epic battles did they go with the Cowboys? How many Hall of Fame players played on those games and those teams? And then you got the Redskins, Theismann and Rippon and Art Monk and Gary Clark and Ricky Sanders and all these players who were outstanding on offense. And then defensively, do I got to talk about Singletary and Richard Dent, Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, Harvey Martin? I mean, do I got to talk about, so many amazing, great players in that era? I mean, it's to me, it's not an apples and orange argument. It's a fact argument. Montana was injured a lot more. Montana, nowhere near the statistics that Brady has. But in my view, when you go 4-0 in the game, that says something about you. As opposed to, having a couple losses against a team that had defense. And I equate that today as I watch Golden State dominate every team in the NBA. Golden State, in my opinion, if they were playing in the 90s and the 80s, would just be a normal team. I'm watching a game right now. I'm watching the Lakers play the Kings. And if the Lakers score 80 points tonight, it'll be a shock. I'm watching Portland play Atlanta. And right now, Portland's got 20 points with 9 minutes to go in the second quarter. I mean, the bottom line is that the teams today don't have nowhere near the diversity, nowhere near the offensive capabilities or defensive capabilities of the teams of the middle of the 90s and the 80s. In my view, the best two eras of basketball in NBA and NFL history. I mean, that's just my opinion. But I'm watching Golden State blow Cleveland out by 30-something, Chicago by 31 tonight. And the fact is, Chicago can't score. Beat Memphis by 50 this year. Memphis can't score. Cleveland. Okay, they had Kyrie back. They had Kevin Love and LeBron. Well, I keep arguing consistently that LeBron can't get his own shot. Kevin Love is hit and miss. And Kyrie Irving, well, he tried to make it, I guess, at first, a little bit of a personal matchup, but realized that Steph Curry is at another level, and they never even played him in the rest of the game. The difference between, think about it. The NBA in the 80s, teams were scoring, every team was scoring almost 100 points a game. Now, it's gotten better over the last few years, but the fact is, right now in the NBA, there's only, 7-8 teams, and they're all in the Western Conference who are averaging 100 points. I mean, Toronto might be in that group from the East, and maybe Washington, but the Eastern Conference teams can't score. And they don't play the defense that Detroit played. So when Detroit couldn't score and was winning championships, at least they played defense. I guess what it comes back down to is this generation only sees the games for what they are as opposed to what they aren't. This isn't good sports. This isn't good basketball. This isn't good football. Can you imagine, as I've said 110 times, if Michael Jordan played in this era of basketball, where you can't put your hands on him as he goes through the lane, or you can't hand check Isaiah Thomas coming up the floor. It's just crazy how today's players, and the players today don't actually talk smack about it, which I give them credit for, but how the outside fans or how the pundits who supposedly know everything don't see the game for what it is. The defense is different in the NBA. The defense is different in the NFL. Quarterbacks today are allowed to do 1,000 more things. There are more rules in place to protect quarterbacks today than ever. That hit Jim Burt put on Joe Montana would have him fined and suspended. He would never even play in the Super Bowl if he did that today. So, yeah, maybe I'm defending my generation a little bit too strongly, but it's just one man's opinion. I'm sorry. I think the Bulls team from 96 would crush this team because it would be a competitive game because they both play good basketball. But the difference is the Bulls had Michael Jordan, who no one would be able to guard. And if you don't have a center at the rim, he would dunk on you. And he would dunk on your center. Ask every center of that generation how many times they were dunked on by him. Kobe Bryant, if Kobe Bryant was 10 years younger, he wouldn't allow Golden State to do what they do. And think about this. Think about the Western Conference teams that they've played. They played the Clippers twice. Both games were close games. And both times, Clippers and Golden State both scored over 110 points because they can score. When they played Memphis, a team that plays good defense but can't score, well, when they're not scoring and Golden State's hitting 30-foot threes, they get beat by 50 and then get beat by 25 in the rematch. Because Memphis couldn't score. So don't start preaching to me about this generation, because you're not even playing the game at its highest level. I respect what they do. Steph Curry is an unbelievable shooter. Tom Brady is the second best quarterback I've ever seen. But he's no Joey Mo. I mean, I still will say with a straight face, the greatest game I've ever seen played was Joe Montana, Philadelphia Eagles. He was sacked 9 times in the first 3 quarters. 28-10 was the score. And Joey Mo fired 4 touchdown passes from the end of the 3rd quarter to the 4th quarter and beat them 38-28. I ain't never seen Tommy play a game where he was sacked 9 times. Or Tommy's weakness is, they say, when he starts getting nervous feet when he gets hit. Still the greatest game I've ever seen played by a quarterback. Now, Tommy gets sacked 9 times and throws 4 touchdowns. In fact, the coach, Seifert, was about to take Montana out of the game because he was scared for his health. Jerome Brown, Reggie White, Clyde Simmons was beating Joe Montana up. And in the 4th quarter, at the end of the 3rd quarter, 4 touchdown passes, won the game. Just one man's opinion, folks. And I'm Richard Harris.